Welcome to Feedstuffs 365 and National Hog Farmer. I'm Ann Hess. Longevity in the herd is determined by mortality and culling decisions, but all of these are negatively impacted by poor body condition. Joining us to discuss the latest research in this area from the Alan D. Leman Swine Conference in St. Paul is Dr. Paul Thomas with AMVC. Welcome, Paul, and thank you for joining us today.
Yep, thank you.
Before we jump into today's discussion, I'd like to remind the audience tuning in, if you have any questions for Dr. Thomas, you can post those there in the chat, or if you're tuning in via social media, you can post those there in the comments. So, Paul, you start your presentation here discussing Parity 1 sows. Why are they especially vulnerable?
Yeah, so Parity 1 sows are especially vulnerable to not being retained in the herd because if you think about a Parity 1 sow, just a moment ago she was a gilt. So gilts, a lot like a heifer, they're still growing, they're still maturing, they're still growing that frame, putting on body weight, and during that time they have to gestate, grow that litter inside, and then farrow out and lactate. And that lactation puts a tremendous metabolic stress on them while they're still trying to grow their body, and they don't have a lot of fat reserves. So that results in them, losing body condition, to a greater extent than like a typical older parity sow would.
So what's the solution, and is there some resistance to that?
I'm sorry?
What's the solution for that, and is there any resistance to that solution?
Oh, sure. I mean, the solution is pretty simple. They need time to rest. They need time to rest, to take some of that metabolic stress off of them, give them time to just put on weight, rest, not be pregnant, not be lactating, so that they can put the body condition back on and continue to grow. And so, as far as resistance to that goes, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think we just lose sight of it sometimes. We get into normal practices on the farm where she lactates, she weans, and then what do we do next? We breed her. It's just normal practice, and it's just taking a moment to say, hold off, give her a chance to rest. Don't forget to skip her while you're breeding these other animals. Make sure that you have the the presence of mind to say we're skipping these ones and we'll find other animals to breed in the meantime.
So what about making your breed target with poor condition sows?
Yeah, again, on a farm we're under pressure to hit breed target, because if we don't hit breed target, we're going to have empty farrowing crates in 4 months, and so our farm staff are always feeling the pressure to hit breed target. And I think a lot of times when they're not 100% sure who's going to be coming into heat later in the week, it puts a little pressure on them to breed animals that they would normally skip, because they don't know if there's going to be someone else in better body condition or in better health to breed later in the week. And so that's going to put them in a position where maybe they're not making the best choices on who to breed and who not to breed.
What kind of performance can we see when we skip Parity 1s?
Yeah, so if we just give the Parity 1 sows about 3 weeks to rest, put some body weight on, 3 weeks will be like a standard estrus cycle. They'll come back into heat 3 weeks later, and if we breed them at that time, we'll actually see improvements to farrowing rate. So at one farm that we worked at where we specifically skipped all of the P1s, we saw an improvement on their next litter of 3.4% improvement in farrowing rate, and then we also saw improvements to total born and born alive. Each of those, it's a little variable depending on how you compared it, but certainly at least a pig of total born and at least an additional pig born alive, just by skipping those P1s and giving them time to put condition back on.
It's quite substantial improvement there. How do we justify the cost, though, of these additional non-productive days?
Right. So that is a challenge. I mean, we tend to look at the animals, and if they're not lactating and they're not gestating, they're costing the farm money. And in an industry where margins are tight, and we need to keep costs down to maintain financial sustainability, we can always be challenged anytime we're spending money on feed and not getting a return for it. But I think what we see is, the small amount of non-productive days we add to the sow doesn't add a huge amount of cost, and the return we get from that in the form of additional pigs weaned, and actually, improved farrowing rate, which leads to more sows actually making it all the way to farrowing and not reducing non-productive days in other ways. actually more than covers the cost of just giving these sows a chance to rest. So it's non-productive days, they really don't become cost prohibitive at all.
What about space considerations? What do we need to see there for these skipped parity ones?
Right. So any time you take sows out of the normal production flows and set them aside, maybe to rest or for some other reason, they're going to be taking up spaces, crates in your farm, and obviously every sow needs to have a place to live in the farm. And so if you're just going to skip 3 weeks worth of animals, you need to make sure you have space for them on the farm. And that can be a challenge for some farms, especially if they're perhaps built with maybe not quite enough gestation space compared to farrowing spaces, or maybe they've increased inventory at the farm for some reason and they're running pretty tight. But what we find is actually through the improvements in farrowing rate over time, we'll actually be able to reduce our breed target, still farrow the same number of animals, and that reduction in bred animals will offset the additional 3-week pool of skip cycles. So it kind of nets out to where you do need a little bit of space to get started, but over time it kind of works itself out, and you end up with really not changing farm inventory much, space utilization much. You're just kind of shifting how you're using that space. It's being utilized for sows that are resting, getting into a better spot to where they can be productive in the future, versus sows that are just losing their litters and accumulating a bunch of non-productive days.
Any key takeaways, final thoughts to leave our audience here today?
Yeah, key takeaways would be, it's a pretty simple message. We all know that, P1 sows, they're under a lot of stress, and we struggle to retain them in the farm. The best thing you can do for them is just give them a break, let them put on body condition, give them a rest. 3 weeks, they'll come back around, and you can breed them then. You'll see much better performance on them in the future. And the small amount of costs that you'll accumulate by letting them take a rest will be more than made up for by the increased performance, and then you'll have a healthier, better quality sow that's going to be retained within your herd longer, which is just going to have knock-on effects and really just improve the quality of your herd over time.
Dr. Paul Thomas, AMVC, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight.
Thank you.
For more coverage and conversations from the Leman Conference, be sure to check out the National Hog Farmer and Feedstuffs websites, as well as our social media channels. For Feedstuffs and National Hog Farmer, I'm Ann Hess.